Hello and welcome to video 58 hours 365 days. It is so good to be back in the workshop room at home where I can get ready and prepared and feel really confident about what I'm going to say and to chat with purpose. And today I want to talk about the decision making process. For those of you who know, I'm writing a book called Do, Delegate or Ditch, which is all about to have the confidence to ask for what you want and more importantly to get it. And for many people the starting point is C. Chat with purpose. Be very clear about the outcome that you want, know what your needs are, focus on your strengths and the strengths of other people, and give things time. Okay, sometimes the things that we want don't happen instantly. For other people though, it all comes down to decision making model, and this is where I started. In book number 1 in Manager Critic, I talk about overwhelm to clarity, and it's all about helping you to make a decision. But what I discovered after 30 years now of motivating, managing and mentoring other people to either manage or create change in their life is that when you've made a decision, if you just think now and you've made a decision, how good does that feel? Do you find yourself the confidence? If you've been stuck with a decision for ages, like shall I do this or shall I, the metaphor of being stuck on the fence, you've got splinters in your bum, it's really uncomfortable, your head's hitting against a brick wall. It's like, when you can't decide, it means you can't do anything, and therefore you get this stuck feeling. The minute you've made a decision, even if the decision is, I'm not going to decide. All right, I'm not going to think about this again for 6 months. I'll decide then. That decision being made breaks down the walls, it breaks down the barriers, we become unstuck, and we can start to move forward and we can start to do the things that we love. However, some people I noticed would make a decision, whether it was to lose weight, grow their business, have a better relationship, be kinder, be more patient. They would know exactly that's what they wanted to have happen. They would leave the session and they would sound really confident. They sound really aligned with it. We would check all the landscape out, make sure that everything was how they needed to be. They had all the resources, and it didn't matter how much detective questioning I was doing, how much we were drilling down. Something would happen in between that session and the next session, which would mean that either something didn't change, or they didn't take action on it, or they started to doubt their original decision. And so what I started to do is be curious about how are people making the decision in the first place. And what I discovered is that there was 2 aspects to this. This bit was that they weren't making decisions that were inclusive of their own needs, their own outcomes and their own strengths. It was very much decisions made about what everybody else wanted or everybody else needed to be happy, and what they were doing was parking their own wants or needs. In fact, they've been doing that for so long that actually if I said to them, what makes you happy or what do you love to do, they'll be like, I don't know. And I was that person about 6-7 years ago, where I was so focused on, if you asked me what I'd like to have happen, I would have remembered what my son wanted, what my daughter wanted, what my husband wanted, what his children wanted. I'd remembered what my clients wanted. I would have remembered what my 5 facilitators that were working with me at the time wanted. And I would have answered, what I would like to have happen is this. And it would have been an outcome that I thought would keep everybody happy. But invariably it wasn't inclusive of my own needs and wants. And so when I then worked to make that thing happen, and guess what? It wasn't what everybody else wanted. It was just something they said in a passing moment, and they changed their mind now. I'd worked really hard to make all of those things a reality. Those people then weren't happy, and I wasn't happy, or worst case still, so they would be happy. I'd help them to release all their dreams. Everything would change for them. They'd be really great and they'd be ecstatically happy, and I wasn't. And I used to feel such shame and such disappointment in myself for not being pleased that everybody else was happy. And what was missing was, in my decision-making model, was not made up of what I wanted to have happen, what my needs were, what my strengths were, and it wasn't based on what I would like to have happen. It's what I wanted to have happen to keep everybody else happy. So have a think about your decision-making model today. Is it including you, or is it all about everybody else? And if you're in that position right now where you recognize that, you want everybody to be happy, but instead of being joyful inside that they are happy, you're starting to feel a bit envious, a bit jealous, thinking, actually, when is it my turn? I keep adapting my behavior to accommodate everybody else's needs. Who in my world is going to adapt and change their behavior for me? And the answer is, you will. You have to adapt and change your behaviour to take care of, and I used to hate the expression looking after yourself first. I don't even believe it is about first, but giving yourself equal opportunity and priority to all the people you care about. And we're great adapters. We're great at accommodating other people's needs. It's one of our major strengths, but we can only do that for certain periods of time. And certainly as a parent, I know that my daughter's 24 tomorrow. I reached a point when she was about 16, 17, where I had literally felt like I'd put my needs and wants on hold for my family for a very long time. And I hadn't given myself permission to have time just for me, whether it's 10 minutes a day to read a book or a soaky bath. It doesn't have to be like, massive extravagant things, but I wasn't allowing myself to have time, or more importantly, perhaps even acknowledging when I had that time. So have a think about your decision-making model. Does it include your outcome? Now, for other people, there was a different aspect to it. So they would make a decision. It was absolutely inclusive of them. But the E was about embedding and embracing the learning. So they would work with me. I'd ask them loads of questions. They'd get some insights. They'd get some new information. But they didn't write it down. They didn't read it out. They didn't have it visual. So when I asked them the week after what's happened to that, they'd go, oh, I forgot that's what I was supposed to be doing. Oh, yeah, I forgot I was meant to be giving myself some time for a bath, or I was meant to be doing sales calls, or whatever it was. And now it's not that they didn't want to. It wasn't that the decision wasn't the right decision for them. It's simply that they had been going on a certain path or a trajectory and had a routine and a discipline and behaviours that were routine, that their brain stayed in that track, and they didn't do something to make sure that the new way, the new decision was totally embedded and they'd embraced that latest learning, that latest insight. And so one of the things that we found worked is, the great thing about clean language is I repeat back their words so they get to hear it auditory. When we work on Zoom, we record the calls, and I found that the clients who listened back to the recordings were more likely to take action because they would have another iteration of hearing it. Those who wrote it down and sent it to me, they would have it as well. Those, I used to send a summary written, those who read the summary, then because they were having several iterations to actually embed the new decision. So if you are setting yourself a goal to be fitter, be slimmer, to lose weight, to be a more caring mother, to be a more better lover, I don't know, whatever it is that you want to be more of, what you want to do more of, then ultimately, if you don't write that down and have it somewhere visual so that you don't forget that's what you're working on right now. If it's a new behavior, a new way of being, you have to find ways of reminding yourself to do it. The next thing was the N, was about noticing change. Now, one of the things when we're doing something new or it's a new way of being, the decision will be absolutely right. We've embedded it, we're reminding ourselves every day of doing it, but then we won't notice when change is happening. Now, some people, the minute they make a decision, the change happens instantly. They just feel the relief, they feel the energy, and they can, everything about change is, they instantly, they tell me at the end of the session, God, I just feel so much better. I came in feeling really exhausted and overwhelmed. I've come out feeling lighter. So they notice the change. And what clean language is all about is about paying attention to even the minutest amount of change. So when I'm facilitating somebody, I'm listening for, if they say, I want to be more confident, and they say something, I'm a little bit more confident now, that change of I want to be more confident, which is future based, and I am a little bit more confident now, there's a change. It may not be the ultimate, I am full of confidence and I am radiating excitement and enthusiasm and I can just be the whole of me. But there's a small change in their tone or their physiology or the language, and any change that was going on. My job was to pay attention to it and reflect back and maybe ask a question. So when you want to be more confident and you're a little bit more confident, what happens in between more confident and a little bit more confident? And then they become consciously aware of the change that's happening in the moment. And when I ask them about that change, usually we ask, is that inside or outside? And so confidence often has a representation outside. We hear and see things, but we might also hear, see and feel things inside. And by asking them questions that really embed that change, really enhance it and align it with them, that restores their confidence that change is happening. And most of the things that if you go to a coach, it's usually because you want something big to change or something that's going to take time to change. And we all need to have those tools and resources to actually monitor change. So I noticed that those people who were going away and acting on the decision, one, they didn't forget, they embedded and embraced the learning, the new decision. Two, they had ways of noticing change, which is great when you're doing something like weight loss. Maybe you can do measuring on the scales, you can do inches around the waist. But if you're in a business, you might do it on pounds, how much profit you're making, how many sales you've got. There are things you can measure. However, usually the things that are less easy to measure are how you feel. So if you want to feel more confident, that's your goal. How will you measure it? Think about it now. What would you hear and see, and what would you feel or sense if you were more confident? If you were confident, it was just the way you'd like it to be, what would be happening? When you've got a measure of, maybe you can draw it or you could hear and see it, you've got ways of being able to visually recognize confidence in yourself. And then you look at what is happening now. And this is where the beauty of metaphor comes, is, for me, when I'm lacking confidence, I'm kind of curled up on the sofa, which is what I was doing last Monday. I'm just kind of like processing, and I don't really have clarity of anything I want to do. So I'm just sitting there with it, and I'm like that. When I'm confident, I'll show up today, makeup on, hat on, made the dress, got the stuff set up, and it will all work for me. And so it's thinking about knowing what the differences are, and then you can start to work out what your process is to get from one to the other. This is the process that I have used for myself personally, but it's also the process that I co-created with my clients to help them be confident in a group environment. And what we discovered is when we consistently apply these principles and we use these in any of our group meetings, that is when people over time, sometimes the very first time they show up, I'll ask them what they'd like to have happen, and they'll go, I don't know. And I ask them, how do you need the group to be for you to work and learn at your best? And they're like, I don't know. They've never been asked those questions before. But now that they've been asked them, when they're in the experience, if something's working, they pay attention to it. If something's not working, they also pay attention to it. And then the next time they come back to the retreats and I ask the same question, how do you need things to be? Their confidence level goes up because they can now chat with the purpose of asking for their needs to be met, because they now know what they are. Sometimes we just don't know what they are. And you can only work all of that out if you start to be curious about the outcome, what it would be like if just the way you'd like it to be, your needs, thinking about how do you need to be and what kind of resource or support you might need. And then knowing what's happening now, you can start to notice any small changes and really learn to celebrate those. One of the things I talk about a lot, and it's one of the big things that I'm known for with my clients, one of the things about disappointment is we do a really good celebration dance of it. We get the whole face involved with like this or like that. We really, really pull ourselves down and we get really into that and really do it. What we don't do is get the whole body involved with celebrating the smallest or minutest of changes. When we do that, your whole body is embedding that what you want is happening, and therefore your confidence will grow. The last thing is creating plans. Now, this is an interesting thing, is that if what you want to have happen is something that's going to happen over time, what I've found is there are some people who are really good at visionary, they're really good big picture, and so they can do I want it to be like this, it's a massive goal, but what they struggled with is planning the little tiny steps, the first things they had to do every single day for the next 90 days. Other people are really good in the moment, thinking about what it is that's happening now, and so they could just think about the next step, but they couldn't necessarily bridge the gap between the next step and the big picture. And so it's about you thinking, and this is when we started to work with our clients and think, okay, so when you're planning at your best, that's like what? So if you find a time when you can plan, so Mark, if I said to Mark, what do you want to have happen next year? He'll go, because he's very tempo energy, he's very grounded, very sensory in the moment. He's my essence for bringing me back to today. He isn't in his mind going, oh, what we're going to do next week, and he's not in his mind going back going, oh, what happened last. He is so in this moment, and he's such a joy to me because he brings that to me. My joy is I stretch us to think about what we're going to do next year so we can fit everybody in and we can plan and organise things. And you need a bit of both. But you have to find out. Now, when he is getting ready for a bike tournament or an event, he will know when the date is, and he will know what equipment he needs. So he does have a planning strategy. And what works for him is to have a date already in the diary and an event, and then he can work towards it. So if I say to him, right, we're going on holiday, we've got these dates in the diary for next year for holiday, can you sort out the travel and everything else? He can plan all that out without any problem. But he is somebody that needs to know what the date is and what the event is, and he'll work towards it. I'm somebody who can have a sort of a dream, and I forget sometimes to have a date to get it done by. And so that's one of the things I'm working on with the book. I've now given myself a deadline that the book will be published. We will be having a celebration party on the 10th of March 2020. And one of the things that I want to have happen is be able to get on the stage and do a comedy sketch, almost a stand-up comedy thing, and just laugh at the way that we listen to ourselves and the way that we criticize ourselves and each other, and how that stops us from having clarity and confidence, and how our lack of understanding and compassion around listening skills means that we all get conflicted views about what is right and what is wrong. So if you think about creating a plan, once you know what you want to have happen, if you can't spread that out over time, if it's okay if the decision was just what you're going to eat for dinner today, done. You act on it straight away. If the thing that you want to have happen needs to take time over time, you often have to be able to chunk it down, break it down step by step. And that's one of the things that I love doing. But one of the reasons I was struggling with the book is I've realised that I thought this was a very linear process because I follow it as an agenda when I do the retreats. But actually, when it comes to building inner confidence, you might start with chatting with purpose, and I might start with engaging with feedback. Everybody starts at a different place. But what I know is that when you use all of these 10 components, you will make really good decisions, and you'll be able to communicate them, and you will be able to get what you want. So if that's of interest for you, I'd really like you to put a comment below, and I'd like to be able to give you the link once we've organised it. We're not there yet, but if you'd like to get a copy of Do, Delegate or Ditch, practical ways to have confidence to ask for what you want and get it, then please comment below. The last bit here, the E, is about engaging with feedback. What I found was that some people would make a decision when they were with me, they absolutely believed it was the right thing. The minute that I wasn't there reflecting it back, embedding it, helping them notice the change, helping them create the plan, i.e. being maybe the missing component on their strengths, being the yin to their yang, they would start engaging with their own inner feedback. Maybe their feedback of, oh, I don't think I can do it, or it's not going to happen as quickly as I want it to, or my partner won't like it, or the kids won't like it, or my clients won't like it. The amount of times I have worked with people who haven't put their prices up because they don't want to upset their current clients. Okay, that because their current clients, it would be too big a jump. But if you change your marketing and you actually aim it for the people where that price is right, you can have a separate conversation with your existing clients. So when you start engaging with that kind of feedback and you start understanding what's stopping you from acting on your decision, then you can start to make more informed decisions. Now, some people would start chatting about their decision and not really know why. They'll be chatting to them, and then they'd get feedback, and instantly, that most of the people I work with are quite sensitive, so they might talk about it to some clients I was working with last week, actually, while I was away, a week before. Basically with them, the patterns were that they were really excited when with me. They'd go and tell their partner about it, and if their partner didn't go, oh yeah, that's a really great idea, or their partner went, like that, they just went flat, and they instantly lost interest in their decision because they didn't have the enthusiasm and excitement of their partner. But sometimes when we're chatting with somebody about our ideas, we haven't timed it properly. We haven't caught them at a good time for them to listen. Or, as we're saying it, their body is reacting to how that's going to change their world. So they may think it's a really great idea for you, but now they're having to assimilate and they're having to adjust their own feelings. So for example, if Mark says to me, I want to, do the 180-mile bike ride to Bath and back, again, I remember him wanting to do that just after his heart attack, and I thought it's a really good idea for him and he would really want to do it, but I was really struggling with the idea of him being hurt or anything happening to him, and so I didn't necessarily answer with loads of enthusiasm straight away, but because I am conscious of the feedback that's going on in my mind, I can say to him, I really want you to do it. I can see that it's really going to bring you joy, and I need to manage some of my emotions that are going on at the moment because I'm worried about you. So I then had to go away and think about what I needed to hear and see to be able to be encouraging and in supporting him to go ahead with that decision. And so sometimes when we want encouragement, we forget to chat with the purpose of actually asking people to tell us what worked about it, what they like about it, what they don't work, and we don't engage with feedback. We just kind of stop asking questions. We don't talk to people about it. We just make up stories because they've rolled their eyes or they've been quiet. So I want you to think about your own confidence right now. If you could scale it on a 1 to 10, what would that be? And if you'd like to be more confident in getting what you want, being able to ask for what you want and get it, and you'd like to get a copy of the book and to be told when the first few chapters are available, please leave a comment below this video. So I'm going to leave you with the strapline that's really coming to life now, which is the for a better perspective, call the listening detective. So if you are struggling to make a decision, if you're struggling with clarity, with confidence, or you can't get yourself heard or understood, or maybe somebody you really care about is trying to communicate how they think or how they feel, and you're really struggling to get it, and every time you say something it seems to push a button and it all goes a bit wrong, and you're really sick of all that stuff going on in your life, then please get in touch, book a call with me. Okay, so I'm trying to do shorter endings to these videos, but I've still got my old patterns. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. There's 3 things, as always with me. Tell me what your confidence is like on a scale of 1 to 10 now, if you're confident enough to do so. Get in touch if you are struggling with any of your relationships and communication, because it doesn't need to be like that. You can change it. And lastly, please remember that if you want a better perspective, call the listening detective. Lots of love. Have a fantastic day and speak to you soon.